Okay.
Everybody knows that, Rox. Everybody knows that. So let's start right at 7 o'clock, just in case somebody's waiting out there. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Henry Ford College regular Board of Trustees meeting. Today is August 10th, 2020, 7 p.m. And our meeting today will be a virtual meeting. We are using Zoom as a platform, and the meeting number is 951-7829-8287. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call, please?
Mary Lane is present. Roxanne McDonald.
Here.
Michael Mead.
Here.
Adel Mozeb.
Here.
Mary Petchlikoff.
Here.
James Thorpe.
Here.
Chair Hussein Berry.
Here, thank you. Can we have the next item, please?
Approval of minutes of the following Henry Ford College Board of Trustees meetings. Regular meeting June 15th, 2020. Special meeting June 29th, 2020. Closed session June 29th, 2020. Recommended action that we make any necessary correction and move approval of these minutes.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion moved by Dr. Mead, supported by Trustee Petchikoff. Do we have any corrections, any comments, any questions? Hearing none and seeing none. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Lane, yes. McDonald.
Yes.
Mead.
Yes.
Mozeb.
Yes.
Petchlikoff.
Yes.
Thorpe.
Yes.
Berry.
Yes. Please attach to a unanimous roll call vote in the affirmative. Next item, please.
Next item are the president's items.
Mr. President Cavalluna.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Chairman, good evening. It's good to see you all again. It's been some time since we all came together, and I appreciate you all making time to gather us. I have several, what I would say are important, but housekeeping type matters that I'll address to you first, and then a couple updates on a few things that the board has been working on. And then, of course, the first special report is mine as well. So the first thing I'll start with is some announcements and general congratulations and acknowledgments of some of the things in our community. You know, we're remote right now, and that's been going on for a while, and we've somewhat gotten accustomed to that. And I appreciate how well the board has worked so well to help us learn how to administer and govern the college through a computer, basically. But I still think it's valuable to identify the important parts about our community that the celebrations we have, and we've had a couple of those since the last time we came together. Of course, one of the largest and most important is when our nation celebrates its Independence Day, and that was in the beginning of July. I put a statement out about that, and I hope you had a chance to look at that. It's an interesting opportunity both for celebrating our history, and I'm also taking stock in a reckoning of some of our more complicated history as a country. And I tried to explain that in a careful and respectful way at the beginning of July. Just recently, all those of us and our colleagues and friends who did celebrate the Eid al-Adha. So I say Eid Mubarak to all of those who enjoyed that. And I hope that was safe and enjoyable. And of course, I understand it probably was a challenge with the social distancing requirements that exist. And I hope that was as safe and enjoyable as possible. We also have some announcements about our personnel here at the college. Some of you have remembered during my short tenure, I was happy to give a big award for someone who was a student success navigator named Erin Yankee. She was one of our bright stars in helping students find success through our School of Business, Entrepreneurism, and Professional Development. And it's a sad day for us, but a happy day for her. She has elected to leave the college to take care of more domestic duties that she had. I bid her farewell, and I remember fondly the days that I called her a teammate. Now, retirements. I really regret that I couldn't look across our boardroom and see these smiling faces in the back as they heard me call their name when they retire, but in our inability to do that, I still want to make mention of their time and their service to our college. One is Kimberly Cramble. She was a logistics associate and in the purchasing department, 27 years of service there. One was Gregory Budalik. He was a facilities engineer in the buildings and grounds, 42 and a half years of service there. One was a friend of mine and someone who I could always count on telling me maybe when I may have done things that not quite as sharp or written as well as she would have preferred, is an instructor and friend, Elaine Sineski. And of course, she also would tell me when she thought I did things right also. It's a sad day for me to hear, and a happy day for her, and that she will be retiring as a business instructor in our School of Bapid Business Entrepreneurs and Professional Development. 26 years of service for Elaine. And you may recall that Elaine was very, very instrumental in taking part of the small group that helped select our Executive Director of Human Resources. Carol Sloan, 37 years of service at, I don't think that's right. I think that I've shortchanged her. I'm going to look at that in a minute. But Carol Sloan is an instructor in the health and physical education, an instructor there in the School of Health and Human Services. I thought she had 42 years. Ms. Dimitriou, do you have her with 42 years? Let me look at that.
No, I have 37 for her.
Okay, that did good. I just didn't want to shortchange her. Carol Sloan has 37 years and she'll be retiring here this summer. And of course, you may remember she was instrumental in getting the what was before my time, but I know a lot of you were interested in the egg that was in the HHS department. I know Mr. Sadkowski has fond memories of that procurement process. Now, shifting to a little more of a solemn process is to acknowledge some of our colleagues who have passed away since the last time we came together. Instructor Mike Dare was an English instructor, and he was a leader in our honors program. And I hope you had the opportunity to see the statements I said about him, because they were both in my capacity as the president of the college, but candidly as a friend of Mike Dare. He sadly passed away on June 26th, and he is a loss to the college, a loss to his family, and it is a sad, sad day to acknowledge his passing. But I am happy to say that I had the joy of working with him for 2 years, and the pride of knowing that he was a honored colleague, a good teammate, and frankly touched the lives of many students. And you can see that in some of the pictures we posted about him and with him. Bridget Pizzino was an adjunct English instructor, and I regret to report that she passed away on June 20th. And her husband, Guy Pizzino, is also an instructor here at Henry Ford College. And I was saddened, but grateful to be able to be in attendance at Bridget's funeral here in Dearborn and the small gathering thereafter at Ford Field. I also sent the board's and the administration's condolences to Guy and his family for their loss. And I was also happy to see that Guy had the support of his collective bargaining unit leader at the funeral. And it's just a very, very sad, untimely death for a wonderful woman. I was just informed very recently that one of our erstwhile colleagues, unfortunately, has passed away. Her name was Teresa Mosig. She was a retired instructor from our institution in the pharmacy department. And her death happened quite recently at the end of July. Anyone who works at the Henry Ford College is important to us. I call all of us teammates, and I mean that. And to all the families and to all the friends of those who have passed away, you have my deepest condolence, and I speak on behalf of every employee of the college and the Board of Trustees to tell you that you have our thoughts and prayers. And we regret that we couldn't be able to say that literally face to face, but it diminishes in no way our feelings of thanks for your family members' service to our college and our sorrow for you and your family. Switching topics, hopefully a little bit lighter. I will note that on August 25th, we will continue the tradition of having a State of the College address, and that'll be a remote delivery. And recently, we sent out an invitation to all of the college community, and of course, trustees. You are welcome to join us, and you can enjoy that presentation from the comfort of your couch or wherever else you like to look at your computer screen. My hope is that the address is informative and uplifting, and I hope to be able to bring in some of my colleagues from the college to give some segue parts of what's happening at the college. That is August 25th.
What time would that be?
Ms. Demetriou, I think that is 9 o'clock. Let me look, trustee.
10 o'clock,
I'm sorry, say
10
that again.
o'clock, 10 o'clock.
Okay, 10 o'clock.
Thank you.
Yes. One other item that I wanted to update you on is that in the beginning of June, in fact, June 4th, I put out a statement addressing the issue of racial injustice and the racial climate in our country. And then on June 16th, I held a virtual town hall that some of you attended on that topic. And then on July 25th, I issued another statement outlining some of the next steps that would be taking place in that analysis. And I don't have the full detailed report on all of that information, but I did want to give you trustees an update of what's happened so far and some of the things that I expect will happen in the future. I do hope, however, to have a more detailed outline of next steps at the State of the College on August 25th. I've worked with the cabinet and discussed this at length, and I've asked one of our colleagues, Vice President Reginald Best, to conduct a scan of the entire campus to gather at least the information of who has been doing work on this topic for some of them many years. One of the things that came out of our town hall was that there were a lot of good people doing a lot of good work on this topic over the years. And I asked Mr. Best, in fact, he volunteered, basically told me he was going to do it rather than me, to go around and get an idea of who was coordinating groups on this topic and what their status was. And that has been ongoing for a couple of weeks now. I've also asked LaDonna Holly, our executive director at Human Resources, to join Reginald Best, myself, and Dr. Gonko to start the process of evaluating next steps from the information that Reginald Best has found about the people around the campus who have been doing work on this topic. We've had a couple meetings and we're going to continue moving forward, but in the absence of being able to give discrete details of next steps, I do want to say that I can now report to you that what I have learned is that in the past, this college and its constituents have believed that administrators believed this was an issue and addressed it, but the follow through was lacking. And that's not an indictment of the past. In fact, it could be said of that of my administration, but it is something that's going to be improved. And so the first step that we're going to do is to identify and define the problems that exist on our campus. We really believe, despite the reasonable push to get concrete steps going right now, the more important thing to do is to identify what indeed is and are the problems on our campus, and then move forward in thinking through carefully ways to address those problems and ending with ways to measure whether we have made success on those problems. And of course, I hope during my time as your president, trustees, you've come to learn that those are not questions that I'll be answering myself. In fact, quite the contrary. You can expect me to begin setting up a way to have the entire community, despite the communication inhibitions that we've got with this pandemic, despite those, we'll be setting up ways to learn more about what our campus culture is and how we and where we can address these issues. And the last thing I'll say to you is, one of the things that I will be charging my colleagues to help me identify is, what is our culture on campus? What is it that we want our culture to be, both for employees of this college and almost, in fact, probably more importantly, what is the culture that we owe our students as an example for how to live as a professional in a diverse community? What is that culture that we want our students to see and know of ourselves? And so those are the questions we'll be answering in the next several months. And I'll be reporting out to you the way we're going to answer those questions and then the way we're going to implement strategies to improve any areas where we have deficiencies. That will move to the last statement I'll make on president's items, Mr. Chairman, and I'll just say this relates to anyone who calls themselves an employee of our college or a student, either current or past. I recognize we've been through a long, difficult run of a pandemic. We've encountered difficulties with racial unrest. We've encountered fiscal and financial difficulties as employees and as a board. And the lack of certainty that we see in the future is scary. And I'll be candid, we're moving towards a time when our country is getting ready to vote on various levels of leadership. And frankly, that sometimes engenders a lot of difficult discourse and sometimes some stress and upheaval. There's a lot of reasons to be worried. But I want you to know that I'm not worried about this college. I'm actually excited about this college. We've got challenges that can show really how strong we are. We've got the best opportunity to show our students how much we care about them, how much we can move forward and continue our mission despite the hurdles that are put before us. And candidly, we have the team to be able to do it. I've watched you as trustees work together and show teamwork. Goodness knows you can't always agree on everything, but you've treated each other with respect and with dignity, and you've overcome every challenge that's come your way. And I know you've done double duty as compared to what most boards that oversee colleges do. And you've done so very well. And the people that are working for you here at this college, they have done remarkable work from their homes, from their basements. And we have made great progress on serving students, but also serving students with safety. If you do come to campus, and there are only a few of us who do come here, but if you do, you would see that we are doing remarkable work despite the challenges we have. And the students that I still interact with, last week I was with a group of students finishing up their culinary arts department classes that were paused from the winter. And 2 weeks before that, I was with welding students doing the same thing. They're still eager, they still trust us, and they still see a better future for themselves as a result of their education at this college. And that's how I see the college. So if anyone is wondering, what is the future? Is it bleak? Should we be worried? If you're associated with this college, don't be worried. In fact, I hope that as you move through the next several weeks and maybe even this term, and goodness knows when we do get closer to something called normal, you'll see that this college was always here for you, was always ready to work as teammates for each other, and that we do have a brighter future because of our team and because of our mission. So keep your head up. That's what I'm doing, and I know that you can do it too. Mr. Chair.
President Cavalluna, you are keeping your head up. Either you're reading from the ceiling or from the stars. I don't know which, but whichever, it's good. But might I ask if your comments on campus culture, is that, you preface that by reference to racial justice? Are you talking about that broadly, or are you talking about that in that specific?
Well, that's a great question, and it's one that I'm still grappling with, the question of, and let me just be candid. Over the last 3 months, most of the discussion across our country has been associated with people of color and the way that society interacts with them. But I continue to believe that if our campus culture is one of respecting and valuing diversity, then it will have to be a broader question than just how people of color interact with the society and our campus. And so, while we haven't made this decision yet, my hope is that we can begin this analysis that does at the same time evaluate that question of people of color and their interaction with society around them, and all other groups of people and their interaction, because our society, our community here at the college is not merely the question of people of color and the interaction with people around them. There are all kinds of ways people identify themselves and ramifications of how they are treated and they are perceived. And so, Trustee Lee, my hope is that our analysis on that question will be quite broad and it will set the culture, what it is today and where we want it to be for that question as it relates to any way a human identifies themselves.
Are
So we
there any
need,
other
for
questions
that,
or comments?
we need baseline measurements, because we can feel great about things, we can see changes, but unless it's broad and measurable, then the changes are just individual, and individual is good, but it would be good to have measurements of numbers of participation in broad areas at the college.
I think you're right, Trustee Lane, and my hope is to find something quite quick that can start to give us baseline information about that, working from data rather than assumptions and things that we tend to believe rather than our lived experiences.
Trustee Petrikov?
Yeah, I just have a quick question about when you want to move into the survey of campus culture and what can be done better. I know there's been studies done of our campus over the years. I don't know whether they were all in conjunction with superintendent evaluations or whether they were independent ones as well that may have some history that if we still have some availability to, it might help steer you at least to look at what has been past concerns and whether we've improved upon at least those past concerns or whether they are still a lingering issue moving forward in the current culture and climate of our college. So if you can, I don't know who would have archived it or whatever, but if there is some way to maybe access some of that information, it might be a helpful start. So we're not reinventing the wheel, so to speak. We have kind of a stepping off point in moving forward, or maybe it's best to start with a fresh slate and not look back. It's just a suggestion to consider.
Well, I can tell you right now, I'll be talking to you individually, Trustee Petlishkov, because if there has been some work done on this question of getting a baseline, I absolutely am committed to looking at it. No matter what we do with our past, we need to be educated about it. So if that has happened in the past, I'll be asking you for help.
It was way in the past, basically, when there were some concerns back then. So it might be something worth taking a look at.
I will, and I'll actually ask you for help finding it.
No, I'll give it a shot. Hey, I found the missing minutes today that we didn't need to vote on.
Trustee Lane, you had something to add?
As resident historian, I'd like to point out that in the past, we always did what was called a 360 every so often with our both our superintendent and with our president. We haven't done that recently, but that picks up that kind of data and relates it to the president and it interfaces those. So maybe that should be considered by the future evaluation committee.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments, President Cavalluna?
No. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you very much for the report, President Cavalluna. Madam Secretary, next item, please. Special
reports, return to campus playbook and COVID-19 preparedness and response plan, board report 4563 by President Cavalluna.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to talk for several minutes about the work we've done here. But before I do that, I do want to note that one of my good friends and most of the time friend, but sometimes called colleague, Dr. Glenn Maleko is on our call today, and we've organized a way for him to be able to unmute himself and show himself from his Dearborn Public Schools lair later in your agenda. But because we're kind of talking about back to campus and things of that nature, I wanted you to know that later in your meeting, if you did want to read, there he is, Dr. Maleko, if you did want to gain his insights or feedback from him, he's ready and willing to speak there. And candidly, if you ask me any questions that I don't know the answer to, maybe I'll ask him to answer for me too. But in any event, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to report that your colleague, Trustee Roxanne McDonald, and many teammates here on the campus have been working feverishly on what we, and Trustee Lane, you're right, I am kind of looking over my camera because there's a screen behind my camera that I'm looking at, so please don't think I'm looking into the future or that I've got this all committed to memory. But the team has been working for many weeks on 2 documents that are pivotal to our return to campus. One is the return to campus playbook. That is the online tutorial / information system that all staff at the college and trustees have been invited to take part in. And then there is a COVID-19 preparedness and response plan that I know that you all have seen from the Dr. Maleko's team. And those documents for the college have been circulated over the last several weeks. But before I talk about them in just general terms, I do want to take the time to congratulate the people who really deserve the credit for all this work. I mentioned one already, and that's your colleague, Roxanne McDonald, trustee Roxanne McDonald. She was joined by a core team of individuals who exemplified teamwork in a pandemic. And I will tell you, for the next 12 months, that's going to be a mantra here at the college, is what teamwork looks like at Henry Ford College during a pandemic. And it is really amazing. It'll keep you optimistic and excited about being around here. And some of the unsung heroes that took part in this were the core team, and they are some of the usual suspects who get things done. But you should also think that some of these people were representing multiple constituencies, and a collective bargaining unit, an area of service delivery here at our college, an area of expertise. And it's really a point of pride for me to read their names, and so I'll do that. Reuben Bruckley, Amy Clark, Kevin Culler, Rhonda DeLong, Holly Diamond, Paul Fisher, Lori Gonko, LaDonna Holly, Edgar Johns, of course, trustee Roxanne McDonald, Katrina Minnis, Tony Perry, Eric Rader, Karen Schoen, and Susan Schunkweiler. Those individuals came together and developed these plans, but also did some of the best work by organizing subcommittees below that core team that first worked on safety and health. Then there was one for workplace reintegration, communications, and then academics. And one of the things I'm most proud about is that we've circulated this plan to all the groups that would be affected as employees. And that would be collective bargaining units, supervisors, and it's been a collaborative process such that changes and updates and questions and frankly complaints about the plan were handled in a professional discourse, and we were able to tackle those, and we're still going to have some of those, and we're still going to need to change the plan as necessary. And I've heard board members say in other contexts that the secret of these plans is to be nimble, and I think that's right. But if you look at other institutions of higher education and how they've come up to this question and dealt with it, you've seen some institutions where groups of employees and leaders didn't get along so well, and there's been some angst. And I'm proud to say that has not been the case here because we've done it as a team. And that's not to say we won't encounter more problems and maybe even some disagreements, but we've shown that we can show teamwork through a pandemic, and this team is the one that did it. Of course, they put together the preparedness and response plan, and that's mandated by the state government. And that document is available to you all. It's quite long, and it details our processes for students and staff to come back to campus. It involves a phased plan that is, in my opinion, the best practice for dealing with when it's safe to bring any type of human activity back to a place where service providers deliver service. And it also entails the work that they did entails a return to campus playbook, which is, I'm pretty proud that this is a modular web-based device that employees and students can access and understand our processes pretty seamlessly. And it is a wealth of information. I know that some of you have involved yourself in it and taken a chance to read it. I have noticed, Mr. Chairman, that no one has reported from your colleagues of taking the test at the end of it and their scores. But you should know that I'm happy that work has been completed and is working. And the reason why I say it's working is because you will recall that we made two difficult decisions. The first difficult decision was when and how to bring back students who had their classes paused from the winter. Recall that the majority of our classes were moved to online, but some simply could not because of the curriculum that they were delivering. Those students started coming back to campus at the very beginning of the second week of July. And we implemented the plan that we're talking about now, and we're, I think, 6 weeks into that. We have one more week before all those classes will be done, but some are already done. And the team is working well. The screening process is effective. I use it. And I know that still to this day, faculty and students and administration are working together to overcome any kind of problems that we encounter. And we're going to encounter problems. But again, this is what teamwork looks like in a pandemic for this Henry Ford College. In your board report, I've also listed other sources of information that consumers and constituents at our college have the opportunity to look through and understand. And then I also address for you all the burning question of what our fall 2020 semester looks like. And that is the other big tough question we encountered. And I'm proud to say that we made the right call, although it was a tough call. And that was to identify very early, as honestly as possible to our students, that the majority of our classes would be online. We did that, I believe it was at least 1 month ago, and it could have been 2 months ago. And that had ramifications. A lot of our higher ed partners were not saying what the fall would look like, but we decided that the best thing to do would be as honest as possible and tell our students that the best practice is going to be that the majority of classes, all those that can be online, would be online. And I've broken down for you all the percentage of the courses that we are offering in the fall by their delivery method. We also implemented something that was a great collaboration between faculty and administration called Live Without the Drive. And that is where students have the best possible online analog to face-to-face teaching. And you've seen that advertised and marketed on social media and many other channels. But the reason why I say that was a tough decision was because, there's a large constituency of students who really would prefer to be on campus. And we were concerned that if we acknowledge that we're not going to have some of the classes that they may want on face-to-face, that they may take their educational service need to some other institution. But we decided it was the most honest and fair thing to do. And I stand by that decision. And I think if you look at some other institutions, that tough decision and avoiding it didn't serve students well, but we did, and we are, because of our honesty and candor on that front. And because we're working so well as a team, we're able to take on that tough decision. And I'm proud of what we are accomplishing. And of course, enrollment will be a continual struggle, and it'll be one that I'll address at the state of the college, where all higher ed institutions are struggling with enrollment. The last thing I'll say is that the collaboration between the public school system and Henry Ford College continues to be good, and this is another example of that. Dr. Maleko and I and our teams have worked together to understand what are some of the processes they are undertaking and what are those that we are undertaking here at the college. I don't think it takes a great leap of faith to understand that our plans are different because our institutions are different. But I can tell you that one of the great things is the teamwork is great between us and at that school district. Dr. Maleko has a good team, and they've put together a great plan. I've watched what you all have discussed just as recently as last week, and having two of my most precious resources myself affected by that plan, I can say I have trust and appreciation for the work you've done in concert with Dr. Maleko on that question. And I feel confident both institutions have a good plan. Is there a such thing as a perfect plan in either context? No. But I do think the plan that the Henry Ford College has rolled out, primarily from the individual names I've listed, is a best practice. It's ahead of where some other higher ed institutions are. And I'm confident that as long as we can manipulate it, amend it, be nimble with it as circumstances dictate, then it'll be the best way to serve students in this difficult time. We're in phase 3 right now of the plan. You can check that out anytime you want. It's public information. And I'm happy to take any questions you all may have about the hard work that we've done so far.
Are there any questions? Trustee Lane?
I saw that you had 4 subcommittees, which was a lot smaller than the task force that the district had. And I did speak with Trustee McDonald, asking her you sent us an email on athletics, which answered my question about the fall, but I still think that, I don't know whether there was a specific one of those four that addressed athletic returns, and then maybe also extracurricular activities, because somehow there still has to be extracurricular. Students will show up on campus and they might get together, and maybe they should get together in a certain fashion, distantly. And then finally, I didn't see what was happening with the library or with international students. So I don't know whether those things were addressed, or if so, I mean, what's happening with those?
Some of those I can address right now, Trustee Lane. Others I can address in the future. The status of the library and really any in-person service mechanism is outlined in the phases of the return to campus plan. So if you look at the phases, if anyone looks at the phases, each phase is one page, and it thoroughly lays out what a student or visitor or staff member can see will be open or closed. And of course, we're in phase 3 right now. That does dictate that the library is closed. International students were a big issue. The Department of Education issued some alarming rules, and I won't go into the bloody history of that process, but those rules have been rescinded. And my understanding and my expectation is that international students will be treated the same way they were before the pandemic. So that issue seems to have been resolved. The athletic department and its processes were outlined, and I think this is the email you were referencing, Trustee Lane. I did send that to you. Rochelle Taylor, our athletic director, working with her direct supervisor, Dr. Daniel Herbst, communicated to the board and myself that the National Junior College Athletic Association has dictated that the first several months of this fiscal year would have no athletic activities and competition, and they left it up until the closure to go until January, and left it up to schools to decide if they would have any athletic activities in January, and if they want to do some small practices in December. I outlined for the board in a attached document to an email what the athletic director has proposed as that, and I have accepted as what we will do in the few weeks at the end of December, and then preparing for, if we are safe, to start intercollegiate athletic competition in January.
That document indicated for most of the fall sports, a practice start of September 5th for a lot of sports. So I'm sure you're well aware of all developments going on all over, but you may not, Dr. Maleko may not have shared with you what's been going on with Dearborn Schools, which is basically every time I open an update on one of our high schools, it's okay, 4 girls on JV volleyball are COVID positive. 2 players were in contact with somebody COVID positive in the football. So probably needs to be really closely monitored. I have no doubt that Director Rochelle is on top of all of it, but it's just more insidious than anybody has thought. And every place that anybody pops up with 20 people, there's a COVID surprise there later on too. So just a caution.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and you're right that the plan currently does envision practices taking place in December, and that we've learned from this pandemic that planning out 3 months is perilous. So we will be monitoring that.
Trustee Lane, Trustee Petrikov, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we look alike. I have a question about, and I can't remember if I saw it when I kind of went through the website and was reading through all the material as well. Have we been hearing back from either students or staff about, and is it a particular need or concern that seems to be a common theme, such as the need for internet service or technology use, or something else that they're looking for that and do we have a central way for students especially to know who to ask that question to?
As it relates, I think Trustee Petlicoff, your question is focused on students, is that right?
More so on students, yes.
Okay, on students, most of the concerns and difficulties associated with technology came up in the quick aftermath of the onset of the pandemic, when students by droves were shunted to online education methods. And of course, learning from what you all did in the school district, we modeled our computer loaner program. I think we may have gotten more than 200 of those out. We certainly gave them out to everyone who asked. That stemmed the tide, so to speak, that I was hearing from the student affairs office and really academic affairs on students struggling for need with technology. Now, I will say that I still get, I'd say, this is anecdotal, but once a month-ish, an email saying I have a financial need for this or that. And of course, we have been pretty successful moving most of those to the Hawk Strong emergency fund. But in the last several months, Trustee Petlicoff, I can't recall a student requesting support on technology that has gone unmet.
Are there any other requests that they might have, such as, that would be complicating their even returning to online school with a family scenario or something?
Yes. And that hasn't been a deluge. I would say maybe 3 or 4 that I've received with students asking for help navigating communication with their instructor about ways to effectively do the education while trying to have a child near them. Or I think one of the things that Dr. Nealon, Vice President Dr. Nealon, and I have been talking about is, what, if any, accommodation should we make for students who just need a place away from the home to do the education, if it can't be on campus or if it can be on campus? And this return to campus for the classes that were paused was our first dry run to kind of test whether that is a need. I can tell you that I've received 2 requests for that. I have not yet been able to determine, and I'm happy that you brought it up because it will remind me to talk with Dr. Nealon a little bit more about it, whether this is something that's anecdotal or whether we should actually start building out a process for the students that have that need.
Well, it might be something that is keeping students from joining us as well, and we might be unaware of it. I don't know. So I was just curious whether maybe a drop suggestion box. I know we have it actually, don't we?
Yes.
That they could use. I would think that they would be able to reach out and say, hey, this is where I struggle.
Well, I can tell you the students that are enrolled, and even some that are trying to enroll or trying to drop classes, they are very willing and able to communicate with me directly. That's one of the things I've tried to make the hallmark. If you got a problem, you can email the president and he'll respond. I can't promise that I'll give you the response you really want, but I can promise I'll give you a truthful response. And I mean, it's almost daily that I get a request from a student, and it has to be candid with you. Most of them deal with the finances associated with education.
Trustee Moses?
Thank you, Chair Barry. My question is about the fall enrollment. How are we looking at the trend right now? Are we under enrollment projections? I believe there was a deregistration that occurred on the 4th.
Yes, don't quote me on the 4th, but it happened last week. And yes, Trustee Moses, You'll recall that we budgeted, I'll give you a short answer first and then some explanation. We are down in enrollment and we are down more than I would like to be. You all approved a budget that estimated we would be down by 5.5% from where we were in the fall last year. And right now we are down between 8 and 9%. So we're down more than I would like to be. And we've got some ground to make up. We did the deregistration last week, and as a result, the enrollment went down a little bit more. It rebounded better than I thought it would, but yes, that did happen. And I will say also anecdotally, Trustee Mosip, because I know this is one issue that you and I have discussed and you've asked for me to contemplate. When I have received, and I think I've received 3, when I've received students' concern about deregistration or issues associated with timelines on registration, the registration folks and the financial aid folks have instituted a pretty liberal application of those strict guidelines, primarily as a result of the COVID-19 exacerbating concerns. And I have to compliment Stephanie Latsky and Kevin Culler and their teams for being pretty effective in that just in the last couple of weeks.
Trustee Lane?
Thank you.
Secretary Lane, go ahead.
Oh, I just thought that perhaps the extension of the wireless out into the parking lots was by Sentinel technology. I thought that might be part of it, a part of the response to making technology more available for students. If it's not, it's potentially something that should be maybe advertised. I don't know how many students would take advantage of it, but I know we did have at least one report of some kids going over to a school so they could pick up wireless.
So this is a topic that has been discussed pretty broadly at service providers, typically public service providers, be they schools or other type of things. And it's a two-edged sword. It's certainly, if an individual's at home and does not have internet access and needs to get internet access, that is a need that we've got to bridge. But I will say, the majority of folks running these types of institutions have concluded that the parking lot option is the least good for a couple of reasons. It requires transportation, and while it's not our job to keep people at home, we do try to suggest people should stay at home. 2, if you come to a parking lot, that parking lot has to exist somewhere, and we've basically said you're not welcome. Well, I shouldn't say you're not welcome. Please don't come here unless you're coming to class. So we would have to set up a system, and this is possible. I just want to give you the pros and cons. We'd have to set up a system whereby there would be an acceptance of students and probably other individuals coming to campus for the internet. And then when you do invite people to your campus, you're obligated to have ancillary support mechanisms for them, whether they be safety or sanitary, and your population will go up. And we've thought about this back and forth, and I can tell you right now, our current belief is the better way is to have the student who says, look, I have an internet need, and then help them find a gap for that internet need in their home. And I am happy to say Joe Zitnick from our ITS team has done some good work in identifying service providers that are, if you can prove you're a student, they have reduced the cost significantly. And a Hawk Strong request, a request of the Hawk Strong Fund based on lack of internet is another way we would bridge that gap.
Any questions, Trustee McDonald?
I don't have a question. I have a statement. So if anybody else had some more questions, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Trustee Mosip, did you have a question?
No.
Okay.
The masks, the 3 masks per employee, are those the paper masks, I think I read?
No, they're cloth masks.
Oh, okay.
Washable.
Trustee or Vice President Gonko is nodding her head yes. Yes. So Trustee Mosip, I have a spouse who is very, very precise about the masks we will or will not wear. And so I have not had to use the ones at our college yet, enough to have to wash them. But I'm told that they can be reused, and I assume that means they can be washed.
That's what that would mean.
Go ahead, Trustee McDonald.
First of all, I just want to say that I do appreciate the options that have been offered to our students. I think that's the right way to go. And I also think that the percentage breakdown in those options is appropriate. So I just wanted to say that. But then again, I want to say again, thank you very much to the core team. I watched them in action, and they were professional, and they were just outstanding. The leadership of Lori Gonco and Amy Clark were excellent, and all of the other members of the core team did a fantastic job. They were dedicated and hardworking in chairing their subcommittees. And this is such a complex issue, and it's got life and death consequences. It really does. So the committee did great work, and they developed a very comprehensive plan. They've got structures in place to handle unforeseen circumstances, and they have leaders charged with making important decisions in a timely manner. As been said, this virus is insidious. So we must be able to quickly and effectively respond to whatever we're confronted with. So we have to trust the work of the team and the committees and the plans that they produced from their toil. So I just want to say that it is a good plan. Trust the work that they've done and the measures they have in place. And again, I want to thank them for spending the bulk of their summer just tackling such a complex issue. And I know most of them, and many of us too, have just been eating and sleeping this continuously. So a big shout out to them for their work and their dedication and everything that when I watched them in action, like I said, I was just amazed at all of the things that they thought through. And it is a good plan, and we have to trust their work.
Great. Thank you, Trustee McDonald, and thank you for your leadership on the committee.
Chair Barry, one more question for President Evelina.
Dr. Mead?
Oh, I too would like to commend the committee, especially the composition of it, the writing of it. It was so crystal clear, and it's so comprehensive. It was the work of real professional staff work. I just really appreciate it. I do have one little question, and that is, what will be the role of Hawk Nest during the pandemic?
Yeah, Dr. Mead, this was another really tough call, kind of like the internet in the parking lot. There's an intuitive want to give that resource. And you may recall that I wanted to give that resource so badly. I was the one coming into campus at the beginning of the pandemic to hand the food out. But we have elected to pause distributing food out of the pantry now. The reason we decided that was very similar to the reason we decided not to have cars in the parking lot for internet. We didn't think it would be the wisest thing to invite folks to come. Now, I know that there was a different conclusion reached at the school district, and I'm not casting doubt on that whatsoever. I will say that the threshold was, or the scale was tipped, in my opinion, when I found out that I did think that our students and staff who made use of the Hawk's Nest were getting access to support elsewhere.
Okay.
Trustee McDonald, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, pertaining to that, the supplies that are currently at the Hawk's Nest, I know they're diligent about expiration dates and things. And I don't know if someone could go in there, and if there are things that are going to expire, maybe we could grab them and donate them to some other facility that is currently distributing those foods so it doesn't go beyond its expiration date.
Yeah, I'm committed to do that. I know that a lot of that food, because I was in there, is some of that long expiration date food. But Dr. Herbst and his team will help me figure that out. And there's also that same issue we've got with the culinary department. Those culinary students are actually making food.
Right.
So we're trying to figure out a way to answer that same question in multiple places.
Thank you.
Trustee Moser?
Yeah, one question that I have about first-time students, if they're given any orientation, whether it's in person, practicing physical distancing, and as well as wearing masks, or is there a plan to have a virtual orientation for them?
I got this far, Trustee Moses, and this one is the one I'm going to have to call for a lifeline.
It's okay.
Let's see.
My
I
son.
see Dr. Herbst bringing himself up from the video silence.
Yeah, don't
Kathy,
mute him, Kathy.
is it, I'll let Dr. Gonko or Dr. Herbst raise your hand if you want to address this. All right, looks like Dr. Herbst. Kathy, can you give Dr. Herbst an unmute?
There you go, you're on.
Thank you. And thank you, Chair Perry and everyone. We are doing online orientations at this particular time. In fact, the online orientation is actually having a higher success rate of students showing up to be at their orientations at scheduled times. We believe it's really a positive thing for them. We are talking to them about safety issues on campus and they're wearing a mask at the orientation as well.
Great, thank you, thank you. I was gonna jump in and say my son Khalid, just a couple of days ago, did the orientation. It was a good experience, so yeah, I'm thankful. Trustee Lane, do you have something to add or question?
Yeah, I think that President Cavaluna has already said that the committee, sorry, Dr. Gunko and Ms. Clark, but I think the committee is going to be a standing committee for throughout this year.
Yeah, that's a good apology to them because yes, it will continue on. In fact, I have to say this, I've banished Miss Clark from work for a week. She's on vacation right now, and
Oh, good.
I've
He's
tried
on
to
that
talk.
long-awaited cruise.
No. But I'm a little frustrated. Dr. Gonko, I couldn't banish her. She deserves a vacation too. I think she'll be taking one next week. But yes, this is a standing committee, and the team that's on it. I think one of the secondary benefits is it's a cohesive team. They're going to stick together.
Good. Well, I just want to bring up this issue because we're seeing it identified at the district. I looked at emails both for this meeting and then emails that are coming in with public comments from the district. And the parents, of course, have really high anxiety about deciding what to do. But they're asking what measures we're going to use for the decisions, like on October 1st is one of our trigger dates. December, you mentioned as a trigger date for athletics. I see that we'll have trigger dates further down the road. And we're going to have to explain to people that we're using, I think, this is just my own opinion, we're going to have to use multiple measures. At this point, there's been so much unfortunate politicization and decline of the reputation of the CDC. We can't simply say the CDC recommendation is this. We have the governor's executive orders. We've got other things to comply with. So I think we have to look at broad measures before we decide, okay, we're going all in on the hybrid, or we're going all in on this. That will apply for the college as well as the district. And if you, not that any of us probably thought this, but this morning I texted a couple of people and said, hey, Big Ten and Pac-10 are no longer playing fall sports. When the Big House gives up football, there's immense pressure. So that just means that anybody else that's doing football is going to have tremendous pressure now. Michigan High School Athletic, how they're going to say they're doing it, high school sports, not when billions of dollars just went down the tubes in the Big Ten and the Pac-10. So being alert and having a 360 view, Dr. Gonko and Ms. Clark, to everything that's changing around us. It's frustrating for people because I know they want answers. They wanted to know why weren't the district's plans put up right away. But part of it is because every day we hear something different. Today we hear 100,000 kids have tested COVID positive. Nobody was talking about that.
2 weeks,
In
Yeah.
2 weeks.
in
Weeks.
2 weeks.
So, just being nimble means, I mean, we're really ballerinas dancing on our toes these days, and we're just politicians or, school board members or college people. We're not, we're not Bill Gates, but it's tough.
I wish one of you were.
Oh, yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Trustee Thorpe has been waiting patiently. Trustee Thorpe, you had a question?
Well, it has nothing to do with Bill Gates, but I wanted to get back to something that President Cavalluna said earlier about the early decisions that we made about announcing that we we're going to be online. And we have seen several of the big state universities backtrack when they were originally saying, yeah, come on, enroll with us. You can be on campus, get the experience that you're used to getting. Now all of a sudden they're saying, if you have a chance, stay at home, don't come on campus. But we still want you for classes. And the cost per credit hour, just looking at that recently, for most of these schools is between $400 and $500 per hour. And you're getting an online education. It makes a lot of financial sense for students to take a look at that and say, well, I could be going to a local community college for a quarter to a half the cost and still getting the online education. So I'm glad that we made the decision early and we didn't have to put out something that proving to not be true, just to try to entice and help our coffers.
Very good point. I know President Cavalluna and I discussed this probably 6-7 weeks ago, and I'm glad that the decisions that were made. Again, if there's no other comments or questions, I'd like to also thank the Henry Ford College team. Thank you for all your work. We very much appreciate you. Mr. Cavalluna, is there anything else you wanted to add, or that's it for the report?
No, just that this is an ongoing conversation. So when board members believe, especially Trustee McDonald, give us the feedback we need. You're our voice. You are our ears in the community. So tell us when we need to amend the plan, because we're going to be continually trying to figure out the best way to amend it always.
Thank you, sir. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Action items, citizen participation. I'd like to ask Kathy Demetrio. My last glance at the emails does not show anything that's come in. I'm looking again, but tell me if you have seen anything else, Kathy.
No, I don't see anything on my end. I'm sorry. So it would have come directly to you.
Okay, I don't see anything.
Okay.
If somebody has something, they could quickly email you right now, I guess.
Sure.
Otherwise, we'll move ahead.
Okay, next item.
Special consideration. Are there any action items on this agenda which board member or the president wish to discuss and vote on separately? If there are, we'll exclude these from the motion below.
Trustee Petrikov?
Yes, I'd like to pull number 8, I have a comment I would like to make about it before we vote on it.
Okay, great. Any others? Okay, Madam Secretary, we can move with 1 through 7.
Move to approve action items numbered 1 through 7 as recommended in this agenda.
So moved.
Support.
We have motions moved by Trustee McDonald, supported by Trustee Petrikov. Are there any questions, comments? Any action items?
No, can I make one comment?
Please do.
Item number 2. I think it's number 2 is the security cameras.
Yes.
That is number 2.
Yeah, and then a comment on number 3. The security cameras were mentioned as part of the ongoing security review that the president had last year of the college and what steps we needed to take. We were all, I think, expecting that the cameras needed to be updated. So I don't have an issue with that, but I would like to know how this integrates with that. And then one more editorial. When we're talking about energy and waste and stuff like that, I would like us to get in the habit in the future of mentioning the converse. So in this case, we're talking about security with items 2 and 3, but there's no mention of privacy. Presumably, number 3 is being added to the agenda. That's the security as a service item, which is how to respond. I think, as I understand it, it's how to respond in the breach of a hack or something. Am I wrong on that, President Cavaluna?
No, it entails much more than that, but yeah, it is cybersecurity protection.
Okay, so I would just like in the future, at least maybe some of the backup information. You give us a lot of backup information. Maybe if you could put it in context for us. This is going to guarantee presumably everyone's personal information. So I think it would be a little more balanced than just saying we're having security. If we mention also the point is privacy. That's just my editorial comment.
Anybody else? Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call vote on the motion, please?
Wayne, yes. McDonald,
Yes.
Mead,
Yes.
Joseph,
Yes.
Petchikoff,
Yes,
Thorpe,
Yes,
Gary.
Yes. Please attach a unanimous roll call vote in the affirmative. Thank you. Madam Secretary, if we can return to number 8, all we would need at this point is just read the recommended action.
You don't want the background information?
If you want to go ahead and do that, go ahead.
Sure. I'm assuming that we will have some Dearborn Schools people watching. So, and it was put on this agenda for that purpose because it should be on the 24th. So I just want to put it again in context. Beginning May 28th, an 80-member Dearborn Public Schools Reopen Committee met 6 times virtually as a group and held several additional subcommittee meetings in their efforts to develop a comprehensive recommendation on how to best start the 2020-2021 school year. On June 30th, 2020, the governor issued Executive Order 2020-142, which requires schools to develop a COVID-19 preparedness and resource plan. Oh boy, we got a lot on here. The Dearborn Public Schools Committee took information from the governor's order and return to school roadmap as a framework for the development of the Dearborn Public Schools COVID-19 preparedness and response plan and the following recommendations. August 6th, the COVID-19 response plan with the 3 recommended options were presented to the Board of Education in an open public study session. The 3 recommendations are listed below. Most pertinent, I believe, is recommended option number 1, begin the school year fully online for all students with face-to-face learning labs available for social, emotional, and academic assistance. Details on the scheduling, staffing, and availability of learning labs will be determined if the board approves this option. If you want, I could read the other 2, but I'm thinking right now that looks like the most prominent. Do you want me to read?
I would skip right to recommended action.
Okay.
just read the recommendation, yeah.
Okay. Move that the board approve the Dearborn Public Schools COVID-19 preparedness and response plan under the governor's executive order 2020-142 with approval of recommended option number 1 to begin the school year fully online for all students with face-to-face learning labs available for social, emotional, and academic assistance. If the board were to approve this option, the district would only be making a commitment for the online learning until October 1st, 2020, depending on several factors, including but not limited to local and state health conditions throughout the month of August and September, CDC guidelines, Wayne County Health Department recommendations, and the current orders from the state of Michigan. The district would reevaluate the plan to determine the feasibility of changing the mode of instruction, full in-person, online, or a blended model that combines both.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion that's been supported. We'll go into discussion right now. We'll start with Trustee Petchikoff.
Yeah, I have two different categories of things I want to make a comment about more than anything. And it refers back to the study session of last week, because I then went and read a lot of the online commentary on Facebook. And there was a misimpression of a comment that I made that picked up a little bit of steam that I would first like to clarify. And it's not actually something that is going to change or affect this decision today, but I wanted to make sure that people understood my thought process. When we had the study session on Thursday, conversation turned to the discussion about if we were to go virtual, about the teachers, the suggestion that the teachers would return to the classroom without the students in the buildings in order to perform their teaching lessons. And there was a comment at that point in time from someone that teachers felt that they were being asked to come in because they weren't trusted to work from home. I made the comment because that's the first I had ever heard that this was the thought process of some of our staff. I didn't realize they were thinking that way. I had a different perspective of it, and I was trying to make a more positive outlook for why teachers could be in the buildings. And it wasn't, I want to make the first a clarification in this regards. We hire the superintendent and the college president to manage our day-to-day operations, which includes all these staffing decisions. I was not making the comment to direct Superintendent Maleko, nor would I do that with President Cavaluna as to how they are to organize their staff and have them work throughout the day. That's not my role as a board member. I made the comment only to give a different perspective of or outlook that would be less negative in nature. But I in no way meant to imply that I'm going to direct Superintendent Maleko what decision he should make. That's up to him and the union to decide. What I was suggesting, though, at the time that I thought would be useful was that having adults in the building, which we eventually are hoping we will have everyone back into the buildings, would give us the opportunity to test the protocols we are putting in place. This is a new experience for all of us. This is an environment we've never been confronted with before. And to ensure that before the students get there, that we haven't overlooked something, that we can't improve upon something, and to have the adults in the building to assess it first before the students come back doesn't seem an unrealistic expectation. And this isn't the same as a practice fire drill. All the adults know what a fire drill is and what they are for, and to shepherd the children through. This is something none of us has had to experience, of how to practice a pandemic protocol in a building. So I would like to just put to rest that conversation that I was reading, where people thought that I was either insulting the teachers' intelligence, that they needed to be in the building to practice this. It had nothing to do with that. It was for them to be able to assess and maybe tweak something that we've never experienced before. And more importantly, that I am not going to direct Superintendent Maleko how to manage his staff. That's not my job as a board member. And the only other thing I wanted to make a comment now, moving on to the next thing, is I got online today and I was looking at all the plans of all the different surrounding school districts. And as Trustee Thorpe said, for the college, we have a lot of school districts that have suddenly started to shift their direction. And actually, as we speak, there are several school districts who are having this same meeting tonight, August 10th, and several had them at the end of last week. Livonia changed their direction August 3rd, and they're going to be voting on it. A lot of other districts have also decided to go all virtual when they started to think that they could first open face-to-face or have a blended beginning. Not every school district is doing that, but many have. So the fact that we are joined by our counterparts and also taking our time and being as thoughtful as possible to protect the entire Dearborn community. This doesn't just affect our staff. It doesn't just affect our students. It affects everyone who lives within our boundaries and beyond. And it's our responsibility to make a decision that while I know it's extremely difficult for those parents who are struggling with having their students at home, that's why we want to reevaluate. We want to get them back into the classroom as soon as it is feasible, but we just can't, in all good conscience, be guinea pigs for this virus that we don't know. It could change on a dime, and we could put a lot of people's lives in jeopardy one way or the other. And that's the end of my commentary.
Thank you. Trustee Moser?
Yeah, I'd like to say that, over the past 2 months, the district and us board members have been on the receiving end of so many phone calls, so many messages, and so many opposing views of people who want the schools to be open and others who are really afraid to send their kids, or staff members who are really afraid of contracting this virus. And this is no easy decision to make. I commend Dr. Maleko and the committee that included so many people from around the community with diverse experiences and diverse skills to assess and to bring these recommendations to us. And I know every teacher's wish is to have their students back in the classroom face to face, and but in order to do that, we really, as a community, need to do better with our numbers. Looking at Wayne County numbers, we're not doing so well as in Dearborn. I see numbers really rising in some weeks and some days to more than 20. And that is very, very disheartening to see that. And I ask people to really take precautions when they go outside, to wear their masks so we can return to school, so we can have athletics back, so our students will have a season back. I believe this recommendation is great, that we can reevaluate in a month to see also what other districts are doing and how we're doing with those learning labs. I asked Dr. Maleko earlier about transportation and making sure that our students can reach schools for those labs if they need to. And he said those will be made available to our students, and that's great to hear. So I know this decision is not gonna please anybody, but I believe this is the right decision to make, because one life to lose is too many. Thank you.
Trustee Thorpe?
Yeah, a few points. The first thing, I know there was a lot of discussion on this last week at our study session about the virtual online option. And again, listening to the recommended action where it says that we would begin the school year fully online for all students. The virtual option, the virtual learning academy, is that it will be virtual, and you have to assume that it will be for the full year. What we are voting on right here is that we will start the year in a virtual setting for other students, meaning that a month or two down the road, we could choose to go to a blended option. But in the virtual option, the virtual learning academy, you have to assume that you are there for the full year. So I want to make sure people recognize that when we get a lot of information out there. I had one person already asked me, so that means they'll be with all their classmates. No, if you're in the virtual learning option, you're going to be with kids from across the district that you don't know, with a teacher that might not be from your school. So that does need to be considered for some individuals. The second thing I wanted to bring up, something along the lines of what Secretary Lane said earlier, and I would ask Superintendent Maleko to please make sure that our restart committee is continuing to meet, whether it's at the executive level or for the full committee, often, so we can keep parents and community members apprised as to where do we currently stand with the ability to reopen to a more face-to-face environment with our students. Because I know that's going to be one of the big questions we're going to get now is, when are we going to reopen? When are we going to reopen? When can we get back into the buildings? So the more that we can keep that information out there for people, the better. The final thing that I'll bring up is that, echoing Trustee Mosip, this is a hard decision that you could say that none of us signed up to ever have to make, because we never thought we'd have to deal with this one. And you have to do what you believe is in the best interest. And as much as I would love to have my own children be in face-to-face classrooms where they can learn their with their friends in a group setting and be able to interact with their teachers, I don't want to have us start face-to-face only to have to turn around maybe 2 to 4 weeks from now and say, well, now we have to go online. And then we'll flip back to in person, and then we'll flip back to online. I think that would be a harder situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Thorpe, and I really appreciate the simple way to clarify the virtual academies. That was very well understood. Thank you very much. Trustee McDonald, you had something to add?
There's just a couple of things that I wanted to mention. We've been getting a lot of calls and letters, or at least I have, and I'm assuming the rest of the board has as well, about young children and how important it is face-to-face. And we all know that, and we believe it, and we understand it. But being in a classroom face-to-face during a pandemic will be different. It will look different. Kids won't be singing and doing the things that they normally do, because we know that that's dangerous. That's not, the appropriate behaviors. So as I said before, I think that when you weigh what the new normal of a classroom is to being cautious in protecting our children, we have to err on the side of caution. But with the young children, again, I want to make sure that we've talked about the learning labs, and I don't think that has all come to fruition. I think, or have come to a plan, because that was one of the things, if this option was chosen, that those particulars would be narrowed down and developed further. I would like to see some way to have young children have a learning lab so that they do have some exposure to other students. I think that's important, plus our special needs students, and then students that are just struggling online. So I just need some more information on how that learning lab's going to look. And I know that you said that you would get, if that option was chosen, then that would be forthcoming. But I'm also thinking maybe with young children, once in a while, maybe we could have a session outside. It's, get some fresh air and also give those students a chance to mingle with each other at a safe distance. Those are just some of the things that I've been thinking about. And one of the things, and I may get some flack for this, but in my view, athletics are important. Absolutely. Music, all of those things, they bring students to school. But in my opinion, athletics are the reward for getting everything else right. So it kind of, I think that we need to make sure that we have the academics in place before we can, go forward with athletics. So I have some concerns there. And I know a lot of that has to do with the Michigan High School Athletic Association, but I am concerned with that. So that being said, I think that's all I have.
Trustee McDonald, I don't think you can get any flag from this group.
No, not from this group, but
Since we started this discussion, it's been about health and safety being number one.
absolutely, as it should be. And I think that people understand that, but everyone's struggling just like we are. They're struggling with what they see is the most important. And education is without question important. And your child will never be in the second grade again. They'll never be going into the fifth grade again. They'll never be, a 12-year-old again. So all of these moments in those children's lives are important and they're critical. But having a life to live is more important and more critical.
Our students and our staff's safety has been number one concern, obviously.
100%.
Dr. Mead, you had something to add?
Well, the only thing I would like to say is been watching this NBA, the National Basketball Association, and they've been somewhat successful. But the reason why they've been successful is that they can test their players and the people that serve them, their coaches, every day, find out if anybody has the COVID. And if they do, then they're isolated and they have to put the rest of the players on 14 days, whatever you call it. So to me, it seems like we will have a really hard time getting back and any time too soon until we have some kind of testing so we can identify whether or not people have the COVID. And the testing has got to be something that doesn't take 4 to 8 days for turnaround. We should be able to test kids when they come in so that we know right away if they have it or not. The most important thing is that we suppress the spread of COVID. Putting 21,000 students in schools doesn't seem to me that we would be suppressing COVID. And the only way we're going to really identify how we can serve these children and the teachers is that we are able to test them on a very regular basis so that everybody is safe and they feel secure when they come to the school, and the parents can feel good too. And I agree that I feel very badly for the parents that are single parents or both parents are working, and just the logistics of trying to teach these kids virtually is just extremely difficult. But we're all in this together. We have to figure out how we can suppress the spread of the virus so that we can feel safe about having all of our children go back to school and our teachers and our staff people be safe. Thanks.
Very well said, Dr. Mead. Thank you. Trustee Lane?
President Barry, it looked like Superintendent Maleko was going to answer some of the questions that have been brought up. I saw words falling out of his mouth.
Here, just comments. If there's any questions, I would have called them up.
Oh,
Is there-
okay.
Are there any?
I can comment, yeah.
Let
can you hear
me get Trustee Petrikov had a question or a comment. Just
No,
give it a heads up.
Some questions and comments too.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Doctor. Trustee Petrikov, go ahead.
I had a, Trustee McDonald talked about the young children, and I just had an example that I can share with you. Today, my 3.5-year-old granddaughter went back to her daycare setting for the first time after it had been closed for 3 weeks for a COVID outbreak. Governor Whitmer changed the masking rules for the preschool age students, and anybody over the age of 2, but especially over the age of 4, were now required to wear masks all day long, even outside for their daycare setting. My granddaughter went today with the mask on. My son-in-law went to pick her up at 3:30. She was sitting in a corner by herself, dejected, unhappy, and never has he seen her like this at pickup time. And she said, "Daddy, I don't want to come back here again." It was the most unpleasant experience for this child. She said they spent the whole day trying to keep the mask on her face. She couldn't enjoy any of the activities. They were told not to interact with each other. School right now for these young kids, just as Trustee McDonald said, will not be the same. And my daughter is now considering leaving her job because she said, "I can't do this to my child every day and send her to a place where she is totally miserable. And until this virus is under control, I can't do this anymore." So that's just a practical experience of what's really happening in the real world here.
And with that being said, I am fully confident about the decision that we're about to make. And I know it's been said a few times that you can't make everybody happy, Dr. Mead, I can tell you, I've spoken to a couple dozen people since Thursday, and most people in our community are satisfied. They understand. They understand. They want to move forward, but they understand the decision that we're making. We're concerned with everybody else's safety. There was a lot of discussion on Thursday. I just want to make it very clear. I don't think any one of us were directing Dr. Maleko to make any certain decisions, whatever, but
Oh,
sometimes.
I didn't say any of us were doing it. That's how it was interpreted.
I don't know. I just want to make, well, I'm talking to the
By
public
others.
out there too. Yeah. I mean, I just want to make sure that the public understands that sometimes we as board members, we're carrying other people's voices to the table to make a better decisions. With all that being said, before we go to vote, I'll give Dr. Maleko to kind of wrap up for us.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Chair Barry. Call you chair here and president when we're in the P12, and decided we had a 5.5-hour meeting on Thursday. So I figured, you know what, why not just get a couch back behind me and I can just sit back here today. I don't know how long this one's going to go, and I felt bad. President Cavaluna, I talked to him yesterday, and I'm like, I'm sorry if we kind of invade your meeting with P12 issues, but it is much better on my back than it was on Thursday. So anyway, I want to thank the board for their leadership. This has been tough. You have stood with myself and President Cavaluna. I want to credit the board for hiring President Cavaluna. He's an outstanding individual. And like I said, we were talking on Sunday yesterday because, you know, what's good for the P12 and he has children there is good for the college, and we work together. I think board members have said this before. And again, we're at a college meeting right now, voting on one of the most important things, you know, for the P12 districts. Well, why are we comfortable with it? Because of our partnership. And so I appreciate the board's leadership there. And again, I can't say enough for President Cavaluna and his leadership and what he's done, because we will, you know, once we get out of this pandemic, we are going to continue to enhance things for the district with our early colleges and our dual enrollment and other options for students. That is really a national leader. And I know, Trustee McDonald, you were there for the graduation on the campus when we had a couple weeks ago. The drive-through, it was very hot and we were all sweating in the sun, but it was well-deserved for the students. But it just showed the partnership with not only the college, but the Henry Ford Medical Division and Ford Motor Company, and with Majid Filala and the work that he's doing. So I can't say enough of President Cavaluna, and I appreciate, you know, Kathy calling me like 2-3 times earlier. I'm taking a little more time, but I appreciate her as well, making sure that I would get into this meeting. So having said that, I think these are all difficult decisions, and I appreciate the support of the board. I do stand by everything we've done in our P12 district, and I know the board stands behind me and my team. We stood, you know, President Barry, with our timeline. We started, and I'm not going to go over all of it, but we started in May looking at a stakeholder group. And we have, I think it's almost 100 people involved. And we didn't have a knee-jerk reaction to our plan. Now, I'm not saying any other names, and I don't want to compare any of the other districts because we do what we think is right. But I think we did what was right. I think we continue to do what's right. And I think there's no perfect decision. I think other trustees have mentioned that. We see other districts now changing these early plans that they put out, and all of a sudden there's changing. Well, we decided not to do that because we knew we needed to have a methodical plan that's going to work for our community. And so I feel very confident in our work. I'm very obviously concerned continuously with the health conditions. I appreciate the information on the sports. And so obviously that's going to be something we have to look at soon. But I will tell you that if, you know, right now for the board to vote on this virtual option, so it means the students won't be there. I will say this, and so everyone knows, and you all know me as an ethical person that follows and adheres to all the health and safety regulations, that when we are back, when and if, because at some point we will adhere to every one of those governor rules as far as safety in the schools. And we will ensure that everyone is following that, including staff and students. And that is the job that we need to do. And if anyone sees it, President Barry and I, we were at the board meeting on Thursday, and you saw we had our masks on. We took them off only when we should, you know, speak. And when we're in the hallways walking, we're wearing the masks. We will continue to do that. We will continue to model proper behavior in the community. And that's what we're going to do. And that's what we did at ASC. And we're going to continue to do that for our students. And that's why my message is not only to, is to the entire community. It's so important to ensure that we're helping each other with these regulations. This is not political. This is just doing what's right for our students. And so we will social distance, we will wear the masks, and we'll do all the things that we need to do. And at the same time, I want to thank the board. I want to thank President Cavalluna. We took over part of his meeting today. And I think we're doing what's right. And I appreciate the board allowing some flexibility. So what are those, I've heard, what are those measures that you're going to make a decision? And Trustee Lane mentioned it. Yeah, it's multiple measures. So we're looking at CDC, we're looking at positivity rates, we're looking at local conditions, we're looking at what the governor says. We are going to, not that we're going to compare other districts, but we're hearing cases in other places where there's positive tests and schools are shutting down. So these are all things that come into our decision-making ability. And I know the board does, and we take it very seriously. And I believe, I'm going to say it, my last thing, I've kind of went on a little bit, is that we know that in-person instruction is best for our students. We know that. No one's saying that it isn't. I'm going to say it right now. But the fact is that we're looking at the health and safety of the community. So we're balancing this as a health crisis first, and then instruction. Having said that, the board approved our Schoology and all our online options last Thursday. And so we're going to continue to enhance. And I'm going to tell you, Dearborn is going to lead. And what I heard today is that actually students from outside our district may want to join our, President Barry and I may want to join our virtual learning because they know the quality that Dearborn offers, regardless in the quality of Henry Ford. So we will do what's best by the students. I appreciate the difficult decisions by the board, and we're going to have to make them moving forward. And I will not hesitate to make those decisions, but at the same time, we have to do this for the health and safety of the community. And I thank President Cavalluna, Kathy, and Chair Barry for allowing me to come in today to this meeting. Thank you.
Very well said, Dr. Maliko. And I can tell you, we all appreciate your outstanding leadership too, as a superintendent of schools. So with all that being said, can we have a...
No, I want to say something. Please
Oh,
don't.
that's fine. Go right ahead.
Yet. Okay, I've been trying to flag you down. I don't think I was obvious
I was
enough.
concentrating on Dr. Maliko.
Yeah, it's not often that I'm not obvious enough. So, as everybody has said, this is a hard decision. And I know that people are really stressed because it's their businesses, it's their jobs, it's their homes. And yet we're deciding potentially for people's lives. And just, as we've started to explain the specifics, Trustee Thorpe just talked about the online, and Trustee Petchlikov, it's the specifics when you really get into the weeds that it's so troublesome. The thought of maybe somebody doesn't get terribly sick, but 21,000 kids in Dearborn getting sick, there could be deaths, and that would be tragic. So the decision is terrible. I've spent much time thinking about it, and I regret, and I would like to apologize. One person took me to task for being sarcastic, which I was when I said that we can't be the mask police. Dr. Maliko and us trustees can't go out. I kind of feel like when I go in the community, I feel like the G-men during Prohibition. If there is widespread non-compliance, our staff can't do much. And that's a problem. We need to get our people on board with us, because a staff person, I personally have been in an establishment and I gestured to someone saying, mask up, and they ignore me, or worse yet, they get really rude to you, even if you are polite to them. So it's going to be very difficult, as Trustee Petchlikov just said. It's going to be agonizing for staff people to try to enforce this. So I do want to apologize for my comments, and my point is that our community needs to enforce this. Everybody needs to get on board It needs to have high rates of compliance, which is what distinguishes us from other countries around the world that are succeeding with coronavirus. We just think that we don't have to obey rules. We do. That being said, I like the live without the bus ride thing, but Dr. Maleko, I noticed the biggest complaint, and I would beg you to consider this. The biggest complaint is committing for one whole year. We need to be flexible enough so that people can switch out, so that we can take in. It's our obligation as a public school district. We take all comers. So we're going to have to take in, I foresee that we will have students that will go to other places that won't work. And then they'll want to come in midstream to Dearborn. And we'll have some parents who will start out committed to virtual, or then they'll want to get into virtual. So I'm really begging that we have some kind of option for people to switch course as it goes along. The other question that we really need for people to have answered is childcare. I don't know that we have an answer for that, but a lot of people online are asking that. And we need to put up the plans as quickly as we can. So those are things that I wanted to mention, all of those things. Finally, I would, President Cavalluna, Dr. Gonko, Ms. Clark put up a great option in assuring everyone that we are trained on our COVID info, the playbook. So I don't know what whether we can use that for Dearborn schools as well. President Cavalluna, I did take the test and I passed it. I don't want to brag too much because I can remember person, man, woman, camera, that kind of thing. Anyways, you know, I have to throw in a joke to be sarcastic. But Dr. Maleko, if you can,
Points for keeping it in order.
questions, because people are very confused. And one person that I tried to talk to said, I have so many questions, I don't even know where to get started on the questions. So all the specifics are great. Thank you to everybody who mentioned those. But Dr. Maleko, any other light you can shed in a difficult world is much appreciated.
Sure. So with the online, and again, thanks, President Cavallone. I'm taking over all of your time on here, but I appreciate the board allowing me. And President, yeah, I got the thumbs up from him. So I appreciate our partnership there. And so basically with the online, we're saying the commitment, but we're going to try to accommodate people. The issue is staffing, okay? And it's, so we need to get commitments of people into classes. So at the same time, it's not like we're going to turn people away or if something happens in a month, we're going to be individualized just like we always are. I think that's Dearborn Schools. That's our model. We individualize for our students. So if something happened and a student wasn't well in this program and they want to go to that, of course, we're going to work with them. Now, the reason why we have to put that out there is because we obviously can't have massive amounts of people going from one option to another because it would create a difficulty for us. But I just got off a executive cabinet meeting this morning. We met from about 10 to 12, and most of my cabinet members are watching this meeting. Thank you, cabinet members, for your great leadership with this as well. And we're looking for Dr. Chokol and we talked about surveying staff to see if there would be some interest in childcare. Now, I do want to say that, look, we do not have the capability to do widespread childcare, which I mentioned last Thursday. We just don't. We're not built that way. Maybe in the future we could look at that, but we really don't. And, it's unfortunate, but at the same token, we can work with the county and we can do some of the things that we can do to try to accommodate our staff. So we're going to be putting out a survey to our staff. And then, of course, we're going to try to accommodate the community. The board trustees, I know, received an email from a community member recently about, preschool at one of the places. And basically, we only had one registration. But at the same time, we're going to still accommodate that parent to make sure that they are taken care of. And Dr. Chokol and her team have already been on top of that. I've seen the emails, and the parent was extremely pleased. So that's kind of how we're going to operate. I think, Trustee Lane, is that we have to work within obviously our capability, and we can't just have massive numbers of people moving, and we want some commitment. But once they commit to that, we understand situations will change. And that's why we decided not to make this decision so soon with our plan. We wanted to go within the governor's order. And so I want to rest assured the community that we're going to work with everybody. And I know for sure they can make a change at the semester, but even if they can't, they can make a change potentially, earlier on. And actually, I appreciate you bringing this up because it was a major discussion at Cabinet today. We are going to have principals recruiting in the next week. There's going to be phone messages, the automated phone messages coming out from schools, talk to communities about it. And we're going to ask them to come in to talk to principals and staff to make sure they know what they're signing up for. Now, if they can't make it in, because we understand, and by the way, all those meetings will be outside. We're maintaining safety. But if they can't make it in to talk about the program, then we will eventually allow them, to register through student services. But we would prefer that they talk to their principal or their teachers at the local, or the staff at the local level, and that's why we're offering that. And the ADSA, which is our principal union, felt strongly on that. They felt like they need to explain to the parents what the online is versus the other option. Again, they're going to be doing it outside. So I appreciate the comments and the ability to come in here. Chair Barry and President Cavallona, thank you for allowing me to do that today.
Make sure I don't get in trouble with anybody else here. Trustee McDonald?
Yeah, just one thing that I had meant to say earlier when I was talking about young children. So many people, and you hear it on the news and you hear it from other people, children are not affected. They are not affected. And we talked about that earlier, how 97,000 children have in the last 2 weeks been diagnosed with coronavirus. But one of the things I just want to say is maybe the death rate is low and everything, but we do not know how this virus will affect their health long term. We don't know how it's going to affect anyone's health long term. It wreaks havoc on every system in the body. So as I said in the board study session the other day, for all we know, this could be creating a population of people with long-term disabilities. We just don't know. So the thought that children are less susceptible or handle it better, they may in the short run, but we do not know how any of this is going to affect anyone in the long run. So I just wanted to throw that back out there because I think it's important. You can't take the information that you have now at face value because things have changed. And as this progresses, we're learning more and more. And there is still so much we just do not know.
Thank you. Trustee Lane?
Yeah, I just thought of another very specific example so that people can understand what we're struggling with here. I think President Cavallona mentioned in his president's note that they had accumulated 2,500 tests, correct? I think it was the college that had 2,500 diagnostic tests. Might have been somebody else. My brain is just like stuffed with stuff on COVID, but 2,500 tests. It's 1 day of students. It's not even 1 day of students and staff. We don't have supplies to run tests like this. And a lot of public schools are going to have, if a kid gets into the building, then we have to call in the school nurse or school police or whatever. Someone has to come over. We may have to do a test. Somebody's got to have PPE. It's very complicated. So if people think that we can just go ahead and do this, we just need money or we just need this or that, we're getting no help from the top levels of America.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. Before we call the question, there's one more person here I'd like to thank. I know she's been here since the beginning of the meeting. She's not going to be able to comment, but I know she can hear us. That's our DFT president, Jane Mazza. Thank you for your leadership through these challenging times. We very much appreciate your work too. With all that being said, Madam Secretary, how about a roll call vote?
Yes. Lane, yes. McDonald,
Yes.
Mead,
Yes.
Joseph,
Yes.
Petchlokoff,
Yes.
Thorpe,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes, thank you. Please attach a unanimous roll call vote and affirmative for the motion. Madam Secretary, if we can go to the next item, please.
Board of Trustee business, acknowledgement of correspondence.
Lots of
Seeing
emails.
anybody? I'm sorry, who was that?
Just lots of emails.
Yes, yes, of course. Next item, please.
This is college correspondence, so.
Oh, that's true. Sorry.
Board Committee reports.
I don't believe we've had committee meetings since the last meeting. Okay, moving forward. Next item, please.
Requests for information and or future agenda items.
Okay, again, next item, please.
Board member commentary.
Trustee Moses?
Yes. President Barry and college community on August 4th, the Dearborn community as well as the world were shocked with a very unfortunate incident, an explosion in the port of Lebanon. And this comes at a terrible time. Lebanon, that is home to more than 34 students who are international students of ours at Henry Ford College, as well as thousands and thousands of Lebanese Americans in our community. Lebanon has been struggling with profound economic and social challenges, and aggravated also by the pandemic, but even more the shortage of political will and unfortunate events that have been happening in that country that we love. Many people in our community were affected. I send my deep condolences to those who have lost some relatives in the explosion. And I tell them that we're with you, our hearts are with you, and that we mourn together as a community. I'd like to also congratulate the graduates of the early college. Unfortunately, I was not able to make it. I know Trustee McDonald was there, so thank you, Trustee McDonald, for representing the boards and in that celebration. And I'd like to also remind everybody about the census, that it has been extended until October 31st. I've been hearing news that census folks will be knocking doors on those who have not responded to the census. So you could still do it online as well. It's very crucial, very important for the state of Michigan that we're being counted, and anybody should be counted in the census. Thank you, President.
Trustee Moses, thank you for those comments. I can tell you I lost a couple of relatives, and my dad was only 3 miles away from the explosion, and a week later, he's still very shook up. So yes, this has affected a lot of people. So we appreciate your comments. Trustee Petchikoff?
I just wanted to make a comment that on Saturday, we had such a successful homecoming fundraiser that supports Forts of Varsity Alumni Club, which has an endowed scholarship at Henry Ford College. And a lot of charities lost their opportunity to fundraise at the traditional homecoming event, that both Chair Barry and Trustee Thorpe drove away empty-handed as well, because they sold out of chicken dinners in an hour and a half. And we're handing out rain checks for this coming Saturday to help continue the fundraising event, but it will be held at Park Place. So if you're looking to continue to support some very good charities, including the Forts and Varsity Alumni Club's endowed scholarship for Henry Ford College students, take a look online. I think Facebook pages have the contacts that you can get a hold of. Bobby Abraham from City Council is one who
don't know if you can hear us, Mary. I think we're losing you.
You're freezing.
Like she must have lost her internet, and that's one of the subjects we were talking about earlier. So yeah, she did mention the Fortson Varsity Club. I know there was the Dearborn Goodfellas that were involved, the Dearborn Firefighters, a few other nonprofits that do great work in our community. Trustee
And the
Lane,
Goodfellows also have a scholarship through HFC as well.
thank you for that. Yes, Trustee Lane, you had a comment?
Just to thank Trustee Moseb for bringing up the Lebanese bombing. I'd like to make a comment on that. I'm just like burning up with rage over the corruption in this world. That was an example of corruption that should not have happened. There is no way that half a city should have been placed at risk. That was very foreseeable, and many people tried to bring it up. It's just unforgivable that that was allowed to happen. The Lebanese government has now resigned, but it's too late for so many problems. It's just like the dams that broke in Michigan, the 2 dams that were near Midland. Oh yeah, now we're going to investigate, and those companies have gone bankrupt. Surprise, surprise. The public dollar will have to fix the people who are damaged. But I am so enraged over public corruption. It's happening in so many places. Lebanon, Hong Kong, our democratic institutions are being eroded by cuts, 1,000 executive order cuts. And it's time that people here in the United States object to that, object to corruption, object to rule by the 1% who have the mental illness of insatiable greed. It's terrible. I can't denounce it enough. And we need, as a country, as a people, to oppose this and insist on good government. Hopefully, we will do that on November 3rd. Thank you, Trustee Moseb and Trustee Barry. I'm very sorry for all the people around the
Sorry
world.
about, appreciate your comments. Kathy, if you can unmute Trustee Petrikov, please. She joined us. Trustee Petrikov, I can tell you after we lost you, we recognized some of the other groups that were involved with that chicken dinner. So did you want to finish up your comments, Trustee Petrikov, or are you good? Okay, so you're good. Trustee Lane, let's go to the next item, please.
Future meeting dates, Monday, August 24th, 2020, P12 Board of Education meeting 7 p.m. at the Administrative Service Center in the Frank Franchi Boardroom, following the guidelines of the Governor's Executive Order and virtually available live for viewing via YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and the cable channel Dearborn Channel 19. Monday, September 14th, 2020, P12 Board of Education meeting 7 p.m. at the Administrative Service Center, as I said before, following the Governor's order and virtually available live on YouTube, Facebook, and Dearborn Cable Channel. Finally, Monday, September 21st, 2020, Monday, September 21st, 2020, there's a typo here. HFC meeting 7 p.m. via video conference, details to be determined. Check online at www.hfc.edu board meeting schedule.
Hey, we got this meeting in under 2 hours.
Yay.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night.